So yeah, this is basically a snapshot for all of you guys of what it's like in our minds and answering some questions around trading. So what we'll do is every single month we'll ask some questions on the coffee club section of the forum, and you guys can then throw your questions out there. We all have one wild card. If we decide we don't want to answer the question, we can talk about whatever the hell we want. Doesn't even need to be trading related. So strap yourself in, because Martin talks about some right random stuff, proper random. We'll go around, everyone will answer the questions that I've got. So I'm going to kick it off, and I'm going to go to the man of many words. I'm going to go to Adam to start. And the first question is, I think this is a really, really good question. Do you think it's easier or harder to make money nowadays on Betfair than it was 10 plus years ago?
Yes. I think this is a yes and no for me, actually, in all seriousness. I think no in the... I think it's possible to make money the same way that you always have on Betfair. The main strategy that I use, I've been using since like 2010, which I think shows that you can make money the same way that you could then, but I must admit it's a lot less now than it was then. I probably make like 20% of what I used to on that strategy, but it still sort of pays the bills just about. I don't know if that means there's less liquidity in general now, or just more people trying to get a slice of the same pie, or whatever. And I suppose that's the yes part of the question, because I do think it's harder to make as much money for sure. I think that the fact that strategy is still going, I think, is probably partly because I've never really broadcast it or shared it with anyone. Not because I'm being a dick, but I did actually try and get someone else in on it when I first started. It was my friend who got me into Betfair originally, just to sort of try and thank him. I literally made him a bot. It did exactly the same as mine. Got him to run it on his PC, but as soon as we both did that, doing the same thing, they both just tanked. So we couldn't really do that anymore. That's not to say that every strategy would do that. I think there's probably reasons why that particular one is a bit sensitive. Most strategies can handle a good few people doing it at the same time, I would say, but as soon as tons of people pile on, that is when the value kind of disappears. I think that just reinforces what we try and encourage, in that, with giving people the tools to create their own strategies. It's also the reason why we have problems with people who just kind of join and expect to be able to just run the presets as they are without changing anything, and expect to kind of make money forever. It's also why we get criticized, because we sort of share something and then everyone piles on, and eventually it does expire and we have to start looking at other options. And then 4 years later, someone digs up an old YouTube video and goes, oh, well, this strategy doesn't work anymore, so this is all bullshit, and this, that, and the other. But yeah, it just shows the emphasis, the importance of emphasizing, teaching people to come up with their own strategies. And I think that's what we try and give people the tools to do. So yes, it's harder to make as much money, but it's still perfectly possible to make it, even if it may be less than it used to be.
That's a great answer. Now over to you, Martin. Same question. Do you need me to repeat the question, or have you got it?
No, it's fine. I know what it is. I think that's actually a really good answer. I just want to talk a bit about what Adam said to start with, because I think I had it today. I've had it today with someone, and they're just obsessed with knowing, right, what's your tips? Show us your tips. I always think like, show us your tips, a bit like that phrase. I won't say the phrase, but the phrase I'm talking about. And it's just like, and you're right. Adam's totally right that, we run strategies all the time, and we're testing strategies all the time, and some are really good and we share them. And in general, especially the football ones that I've done, they have tended to stay pretty good. But you're going to get a bit of a dip if everyone's piling onto the same strategy. It's going to happen a little bit. It might happen, like Adam says, it might expire. There's reasons why I've moved on from strategies in the past, and I'm very open and honest about that on the forum. And I update those threads quite regularly with that and show people. And one of the things we always say, we're not tipsters, right? And that's a massive thing for me. We're not tipsters. So yeah, that's a really good point. I actually think it's much harder to make money on Betfair if you're just coming at it fresh and you're not getting any training or anything like that now. I think in the early days of Betfair Trading, there were traders who made money who didn't need any help, right? You could come onto Betfair and there were opportunities. But I think now you need the training, you need software. And I think that's why what we do is so important. And why we have so much success with people is because ultimately it's so difficult to come into something like Betfair Trading just cold and just go, I'm going to make money, I don't need any help. And I feel like that has got more and more over time, because tools like Betfair Trading Community, the training, the software, it didn't exist, 10 years ago, did it? It didn't exist. So you didn't have that outlet. And now that people do, the people who've got that stuff, they're obviously going to have an advantage. That's basic maths, right? If someone trains, it's like having a job. If someone trains at a job, are they going to have an advantage over somebody who doesn't? Well, you'd say pretty much every time. Yes, of course they will. But I think it's easier if you are getting that training. So I think the second part is that it's actually easier to do well at Betfair Trading now. If I'd had Betfair Trading when I first started, it would have saved me so much time, effort, and money that I wasted trying to get good at Betfair Trading. Even just creating strategies. I was spending hours and hours every day on soccer stats trying to find an edge, Now I can just create a strategy, save it, the results are there. I can get the selections instantly every day. That alone cut instantly probably 20 plus hours out of my week, which I can now spend how I want. Maybe improving as Betfair trader, maybe spending time with my family, doing the things that you couldn't do when you were working like ridiculous amount of hours a week, just trying to find an edge because you didn't have the training or the software. So I think it's harder if you don't get any training and you don't use software. I think it's harder to make money. But if you do, if you're willing to do the training, if you're willing to try and improve as a trader all the time, keep developing, adapting to the situations. I think a lot of people who drop out of Betfair Trading, especially people who've done well in the past, is because they're not willing to adapt. They're not trying to improve as traders. They're just, I know how to trade on Betfair. I'll go and do it alone. Oh no, now I'm not doing well anymore. I wonder why. And yeah, that's my answer anyway.
I think it's great. I think it's really fascinating as well to see and hear the answers from both of you, because we've all got similar sort of years of experience trading on Betfair, and to sort of hear different viewpoints on it. Because I'm yes and no. I think if you'd have asked me this question a couple of months ago, I would have said that it was a lot harder to make money. But then my whole trading has changed over the last few months, where I've automated Adam's automated my trading for me, and then messaged me last night fuming because my bot made more than his, and he was like, "Oh, that strategy turned on." So I think it was easier to make money 10 years ago because there was loads of money flying around, and it was a lot of the older sort of traders that I know always say it's like taking candy from a baby, wasn't it? You could just like see these these money lumping in, and you'd be like, "Oh, I'm having some of that," and you'd lay it off or whatever. And that was a while ago. But one of my strategies that worked back then worked until I turned it off a few months ago, which was lay the draw. Yeah, it didn't make as much money, but what I found with that one anyway was it fell out of fashion. So people stopped trading it because it didn't make as much money, which was great because then it did start making more money, which I loved. So it was amazing for me. But now automation is here. I think I openly talk about automation being the future of Betfair trading. I think it is, especially now you look at how fast technology is caught up, how public perception to Betfair and trading has actually changed. I think COVID did a lot for that. Whereas now you can actually backtest an idea, and we're not just talking 1 year's data. You can get like 10, 15 years worth of data and go, "Oh, hang on a minute. If I compiled all that myself, it would take me forever. It took me 15 years every single day of going through it. I can do that now with a few clicks and then test that going forward." So I think that's really interesting. And then there's a follow-up question as well, which I really like. Do you think you would be the same trader or as successful as you are now if you were starting today when you did originally? I'm going to change the order up because I'm going to go first on this one. I if I started trading now in my current circumstance, which is where a lot of our members are coming to us, young family, working, although albeit I'm not actually technically working, I don't think I'd be anywhere near as good. I do not think I'd be anywhere near as good, because you think about all of the pressures and everything that go into normal life anyway. Leaving the house to go to work, coming home, you've got kids to look after, get them to bed, etc., etc. You're wired. It comes to past their bedtime and you just want to go to bed. I don't think I would be anywhere near as good if I started now. And I have restarted with my automation project, but I've got all of those years of experience to lean on. And also I lean on Adam's experience because he's the one building the bot. But then we also have conversations on our calls about which strategy should we put on bots and various different bits. So all three of us together probably got more experience combined than anybody else out there. That's not me saying that we're the best traders out there. Combined, we've got 3 different sets of experience over a long period of time that allows us to look at things differently. So I'm going to pass that question now over to you, Martin.
It's a difficult one. It's a difficult one to know. Like, you just don't know. I feel like I would be in a better place because of the fact that, you know, like I say, Betfair Trading Community exists. And, you know, I seeked out Betfair Trading Community nearly 10 years ago now. And when I started 20 years ago, this stuff just didn't exist. So in the first 10 years, basically, a lot of it was trial error, losing a lot of money, you know, running up and making a profit and then just throwing it all away, chasing losses. And with the automation side of things, that takes me, the thing that automation does, if anyone's having problems with discipline, is it just takes the discipline issues completely out of it. Because you're not sitting there worrying about every single trade. Oh, hang on. Like with the horse stuff I'm testing at the moment, I can just look at my bot at the end of the day and go, oh, it lost 20 quid today, or oh, it made 30 quid. That's great. I don't have to go through the ups and downs of, oh, it's 10 points down, and oh no, it's do you know what I mean? And that especially if you have discipline issues, that can make a massive difference. And my big problem early on was discipline. And without something like Betfair Trading Community, and we're going to talk a lot about Betfair Trading Community. Obviously, that's what we run. But there's other things out there as well. And I'm saying that stuff just did not exist 10 years ago. So there was literally no chance. And you were just left to fend for yourself. And I feel like I wish I could have started now, but a bit younger. You know, I would, because I wouldn't want to give up the past 20 years of experience that I've got. And I feel like that's really good to have. But if I was coming in fresh now without having the option of the past, then yeah, I'd still feel very confident about it myself. What about you, Adam?
Yes, it's quite hard to answer because there's so many variables. I think my answer is similar to Ryan's. If I had to learn trading now and invest a load of time in writing bots and stuff, then I think I would really struggle because I don't have the time that I used to do that. But well, the main reason is that I'm a dad. That obviously swallows tons of time. Shouldn't say swallows. I value that time immensely. And but I guess that part of that time is BTC as well. And obviously, if I'd never got into trading, then it follows that I wouldn't be involved with BTC. So I'd have that time, but I'd probably be doing something else. So the point still stands. I mean, I used to go to work, get all my work done when I had a proper job by about 11 a.m. And then I'd sit there at my desk for the rest of the day writing bots at work. And then I'd come home about 5 p.m. and then I'd probably put another 8 hours in a night into writing bots. Like nowadays, I'm lucky to get a single sort of 4-hour block of time to work on one thing because there's just so much going on and my attention's so divided. But on the other hand, I can now knock up a bot in about that time. I think that the bot you're using now, Ryan, I put the bare bones of it together in about 4 hours, and okay, there was a load of debugging and stuff to do afterwards. But yeah, and I suppose the alternative is sitting there manually watching races and matches and stuff like that. So, you know, if I had to start the process now, I would find it difficult. But we all make time for what we want to do. Everyone makes excuses and says they don't have time and stuff, but that's really just you saying this isn't as much of a priority as something else. We've all got 168 hours in the week. And whether you succeed at anything is basically just a function of how much you know already on that subject, how much time you've got to learn more, and how determined you are, pretty much. So yeah, I don't know. Kind of talked myself out of that answer, and I think my final position is that if I really wanted to, then I'd probably still find a way to make it happen, but it would be different and more difficult, I think.
Oh, I love these answers. That's really good. And I'm with you. It's, you know, if you value it and you want to do it, you would put some time aside to do it and to learn it. And I think there's Martin, you talk about the tools and everything that's available now. I think that massively speeds up the process of being able to do it. I think if I started now, I would definitely, stats would be my focus, because I think about it as that really narrowing in on what you want to trade. I couldn't be one of those people that opened the Betfair exchange at 3 o'clock on a Saturday and saw 25 games and started flitting around them all. I'd have to really sort of hone in on them. So the next question, apart from this one, what is the stupidest question that you have been asked in the last month? I'm going to go Adam first with this one.
Well, as you know, it's one of our company values that no question is a stupid one. So I'll have to slightly swerve the question on that basis, but I don't want to completely cop out. It's true. Like we don't mind anyone asking pretty much anything. There's traders of all sort of levels on the forum, and you know the people who are just starting out need to be able to feel free to ask anything they like to get started. And I think that's useful for the people who are more experienced as well to get back to basics sometimes, because you do forget stuff and get complacent and forget the essentials and the basics. So it's not necessarily that any individual question is stupid. I think the one, just kill my phone. I think the only thing I would say is the only thing that frustrates me is when we give people information and then they just literally don't look at it when it's right in front of them. People now and again, we get the same questions again and again, and I always try and sort of look inward and think, well, if people are asking this, then clearly we need to make it clearer or more obvious. But at the same time, we get some people who sign up and I think they think their fairy godmother is going to come down and wave the magic wand, and then their Betfair balance is going to 10x in like one day. And there's some people you can do so much for them, and then they still just won't kind of pick it up and run with it and figure out how to fit it into what they're trying to do. And I've made videos for people before where it's literally a personal video for them, like 5-minute video addressing their exact concern, telling them exactly what to do. Like not like a semi-relevant template answer that we bang out to every Tom, Dick, and Harry. It's very kind of customized, and then they'll still come back and go, "Can you just dumb it down for me a bit?" Or like they'll make it clear they haven't really looked at it. So yeah, although there's no stupid questions, I think that the frustration sometimes comes from the fact that some people just can't be bothered to use the information that we give them, and there's a limit, to be fair, to how much you can sort of do for people. I think coming into this, you have to accept that you're going to have to invest some time to, if you don't know anything about trading, then firstly learn about trading and learn some of the concepts, and then later to learn the new pieces of software that you're starting to use, whether it's ours or BetAngel or BFBM or whatever else.
I like it. Over to you, Martin. Same question.
So yeah, I mean, I can't really think of any silly questions particularly. I think one thing that, if we're talking about things that frustrate us a little bit, is when people say, "Hey, this software isn't working, or something isn't working, this strategy won't work or won't run," but then they just say, "Oh, I've got an over 2.5 strategy, it's not working, what's wrong?" When someone says that information to me, there's not really anything I can do with that, right? So what I would say is that I just wish people would come to me and go, "Here's the screenshot, here's the issue, here's what the problem is, what's the solution?" Because if I can't see what it is, if I don't know what it is that you're doing, it's virtually impossible for me to tell what you're doing wrong. So I think that's something I'd say that I just wish people would get, because then I have to ask them, and then there's a bit of a back and forth, and then finally they'll send me the info I need. But that might take a day. That might take 2 days. It depends how often we're both checking our responses to each other. So, you know, that's time basically wasted that could just be saved by saying, okay, here's the issue. Here's a screenshot of the problem, or here's the name of the strategy that I'm having the problem with. Can you go and have a look? And then I can sort that for you. So that's my answer to that.
Do you know what? I'm going to play a wild card. That's what I'm going to do. I feel like I need like a sound effect or something, or an actual wild card. Because I think you can't know my answer yet. It might be that. It might even be worse. I think it's quite interesting that we are coming up to 10 years. The BTC started 10 years ago. So I think with my wild card, I'm just going to talk about the core values of BTC, because we didn't really have any of these. Like we were just 3 blokes bumbling along, running a community, and then decided to actually take it quite seriously. And when we did take it seriously, it was phenomenal, and it became way more professional. We started to build better software. We started to build better relationships with traders. We started to help more traders, which was amazing. And a lot of that came from the systems that we put in place, books we've read, and various different bits and bobs. But at the core of it was those core values that we set out. So we all met quite nicely and quite organically, and it sort of fell into place really seamlessly. And we all got on. But before we sort of really formalized it, we did sit down and sort of go through those core values. And I'll go through them now. To treat everybody with respect, no question is a daft one. We actually treat everybody with respect, no matter what they say about us externally or internally. It doesn't matter. You don't really ever hear us bad-mouthing anybody, you know. So I think that's really important. And then we are a collaborative group. We encourage people working together and not being left behind. That's one of the things that I absolutely hated. That's why I created the Facebook group in the first place. I hated the way the Betfair world is. And to some extent, I still do, external of our world, because it's just full of people who don't really want to help each other and are quite mean with it as well. I don't think there's like any need to be like that at all. And we are...
was a bit of a cesspool, weren't they?
Yeah, it's just horrible, isn't it? Do you remember people used to come in and go, I've got some information, put your house on this horse winning. And all they'd done is back that horse and then waited for everybody to go, oh my God, have you heard that horse is going to win? And then they laid it 20 minutes later. It was literally market moving. Just insider trading, ridiculous. Another one of we've got 2 values left. Open and honest, we share the wins and the losses because we believe that the losses are a learning point for all of us to learn from. And the last one, we have a consistent approach, so clear understanding to everything, trading, emails, advice to our members, everything. So you pretty much get the same tone, the same style throughout everything that we do. And I think that's really, really important. I think it's also important for you guys as the coffee club people to sort of know our values as well. And because you guys, all of those values as well, you have and you exhibit, which is why you're in the coffee club, which is why we picked you. So we've got a couple of questions left. So we'll rattle through these. How does timing play a pivotal role in Betfair trading success? Martin, I'm going to go to you on this one.
Timing in what sense? In terms of placing the bet? Or...
I think it must be, because the follow-on question would make me think that that's the way.
Well, it depends what you trade. Like if you're trading in play, horse racing, timing is going to be essential to your Betfair trading success. If you're trading, you know, a set and forget strategy pre-match, it's not, especially in something like football, it's not going to be as essential because you're going to be able to place that bet at some point before the start of the match pretty easily. I think that this is where you have to kind of split the sports, and it does make a big difference. So I was speaking to someone today where they were talking to me about staking, and I was saying, hey, if I'm doing set and forget strategies on horse racing, I'm staking a lot lower than on football, because on football, the prices aren't going to move crazily. You're not going to be laying often. Because a lot of my horse stuff is laying at kind of 6-7 odds a lot of the time. So it's a difficult one. It's a difficult one to answer. I think that, you know, in terms of timing, when you're doing in play, it's much more important, isn't it, than the pre-match stuff. So yeah, I think, and the thing is, if you're looking to get an edge on the horse racing market in terms of timing in running, it's not going to happen, right? The market is so quick, isn't it, to move after every little thing happens. And there's people that buy the data feeds so that they cut the satellite delays, so that they literally spend thousands of pounds so they can get in 2 or 3 seconds earlier. That's why I think set and forget strategies are so important. You know, I'm not going to be trading a horse race in play manually. No chance, right? I just don't think you can get an edge that way. I think you have to plan, you have to prepare what you're doing. And if you're doing that, timing is just already what you're doing. It doesn't, you know, it doesn't really make a difference because you've already planned what you're going to do. If your bet's set up to enter, if it hits this price in horse racing, it will do that. So again, if you set that all up, and that's why I like, especially in racing, I like to have it all up, set up pre-race. Football, again, things move a lot more slowly. So timing isn't essential. Even if you're trading in play, if you see value odds, try and take those value odds. If that price goes, well, I'm not just going to chase it. I think that's the key thing with timing. If you miss your opportunity because you've missed it timing-wise, then actually don't take that opportunity. You don't want to be chasing something because you missed the timing on it. So yeah, it depends what sport you're doing, depends what kind of style you're trying to trade. For me, it doesn't play a massive role because everything I do pretty much is planned pre-match. Or what I'll do on football, which is quite good if you're worried about timing, is get in at half time. You've got 15 minutes. You're not going to miss the market, you know. But if you're trying to get in at this exact second, and if you miss that, you've missed the opportunity, then yeah, it's going to be difficult to play. But yeah, that's my answer.
Great answer. I agree with all of that as well. And I think especially with, if you're thinking about that with football, like I've said for years, if you've got data and you're tracking what's happening with your strategies, then I think a lot of people, they do always try and time the market. They're like, oh, I've got to get in now because this is the best time. But I'd rather you get in and get exposure to a market and then track what is happening, track what's happening to those prices, track what's happening when a goal is scored after the point you get in, etc., etc., etc. So you can actually go, oh, do you know what? That isn't the best time to get in. I've now got 200 results. That's not the best time to get in. I need to wait 10 minutes. That's the best time to get in. The only way you're going to do that is having some exposure to the market and not putting a massive, massive emphasis on that for football. Horse racing, I'm with you, in play is just ridiculous. It's crazy. And I actually really like the just set and forget and automation. It's just so easy. You don't need to worry about anything. Adam, how would you answer that?
Yeah, I wasn't too sure what the focus of this question was either, so I had a couple of different thoughts. You've got time of day, so unless you're automating everything, then you obviously need to think about when you can actually physically trade. If you're trying to trade at work with other distractions and stuff, then it's probably not going to go too well if you're trying to, you know, scalp pre-race or whatever. If you work nights and then you're trying to trade in the day when you're knackered and burning the candle at both ends, that's going to go against you psychologically. So basically find a way of making trading fit into your life rather than sort of making your life fit trading. It's time of year as well. So if you're trading football, obviously there's a couple of months where the main league is going to disappear, but that may or may not be an issue if you find a way to kind of specialize on the, you know, the Scandinavian leagues and whatever else is happening through summer. Horse racing is obviously year round, but the markets do behave differently in the flat season compared to the jump season, especially around the time when it switches between the two. So sort of late March to late October-ish, or late March and late October-ish. And then obviously, like you said, you both said, you've got timing at an individual market level. Liquidity is obviously tied to the flow of time in the market. If you're scalping horse racing, then you're probably not going to be doing that at 4 a.m. when there's naffle going on, at least on UK races. You'll be waiting until the last 10, 20 minutes before the race. And obviously the time you enter can have a big effect on the price, and that could easily be the thing that makes or breaks a strategy. In horse racing, there's a couple of peak times per day, sort of from 6 to 10 at night and 7 to 11 in the morning, which I think tends to be when the most, you know, real humans are betting, other than just before the race goes off. So they can be. Well, I mean, you could, if you've got a strategy that you're a bit on the fence about and seems, you know, sort of promising, but the profit's a bit mediocre, just literally in the horse racing software, for example, run it in a couple of different time frames using the absolute time thing, and just see whether you're better off using the morning prices versus the evening prices versus wait until just before the race goes off, because often you can secure a better price at the sort of morning price around 8:30. So yeah, that's obviously purely related to time and determining what prices you get. So yeah, that's my answer.
Love it. So just a yes, no then on this one. Do you think manual traders can compete with bots? I don't think they can. Nope.
If you're trying to compete, no, but I don't think you need to compete. There's loads of different ways to play. Set and forget betting, trading at halftime, the things I said about timing. So it's not really yes or no, but a maybe.
As someone who exclusively trades via bots and automation, I still say yes, they can. Just because, for the same reason that Martin said, bots have got an advantage in terms of speed of execution and stuff, but there's also stuff they can't do so well. I've been trying to automate my scalping technique for years on and off, and it's really hard because there's so many factors, and it comes down to, there's a lot of things that come down to kind of intuition and gut feeling. This is definitely not a yes, no answer, sorry. But a gut feeling is just another way of saying that you know something, but you can't explain it. And if you can't explain it, then you can't put it into rules in a bot, and therefore you can't automate it. So there are some things that a bit of human intuition is just better for. And also a lot of this leads on from what Martin said, where you don't need to compete, because a lot of the time all the bots just fight each other in the market. So they're kind of on a different playing field to the normal traders. So all the bots do a lot of the time is kind of come in, create a load of noise in the market that you don't need to listen to or pay attention to as a manual trader, and you can just ignore it. Doesn't necessarily follow that the bots get all the best prices and leave none for anyone else. It doesn't really work that way, in my experience.
I'm really enjoying this format, like hearing everybody else's different view as well. I think it's really, really good. So the last question, how do you look back over your data and try and improve them? So I'll go first on this one. What I do, I always start with a hypothesis of a strategy. I always start with what has to happen in that market to be profitable, and then I build out my strategy from that. Reason I've done that is that's what I've used that's worked. That's what I've seen. All of the best traders I've ever seen over like 17 years of doing this have done that as well. They've started with a hypothesis, they've narrowed down on it, and then they've gone down into that. So then it's just, for me, is looking at the data to see what the wins have in common, what the losses have in common, and how that relates to the hypothesis, and how I can then tweak that, maybe change my selection criteria up a little bit of percent. It might be, for example, I'm looking at 70% over 1.5 goals by 70 minutes, but my data is actually telling me that 72% would be better and would be more profitable long term. Okay, cool. So for me, is headphones on, listen to some like lo-fi tunes that's not words or anything that's going to get me excited, because I've got quite an excitable personality. So if I'm listening to something that's quite upbeat and I'm drinking coffee, no chance of my focusing. Something quieter, calmer, and look through the data, and actually scheduling time to do that as well. I actually schedule time to look through the data, and that is the only task for that part of time, that block of time, and go, what are the losers? What do the losers have in common? And then very similar to what you mentioned, Adam, with the bot as well, I'm also trying to look at it two ways. I'm trying to look at what is the data telling me, the actual raw data, what is it saying? And then what is my intuition, what is my gut telling me? And then I'm trying to make an informed, rational decision based on that. Because sometimes because I've done it for so long, I just get a feeling that I know that even though the data is telling me one thing, I know it's I know deep in my gut that I need to keep going the way I'm going. So that's my answer. And then I'm going to go to Adam first on this one, and then Martin can finish us off.
This has definitely got a lot easier since we created the horse racing software. I think the key for me is just logging absolutely everything. You need to be able to see exactly what was happening in every version of your strategy so that you can see the effect of every change, and then only make one change at once as well. That's probably one key thing that I've learned over the years. I basically just used to capture a load of data in an SQL database and reams of text logs, and then trawl through it, run a load of regression tests and stuff like that in a format that was just really unwieldy and kind of ad hoc, even though it was semi-automated, which was basically a precursor to the software, but with no user-friendly front end on it whatsoever. And it used to take a couple of days to do some sort of back test for one strategy. Putting a nice front end on it that's easy to use made it so much quicker and easier to run those sorts of tests, even for me as a user of my own software. This is why it always bugs me when people go, oh, if this worked, then you'd spend your days trading and making loads of money, you wouldn't be selling software. These people have no concept whatsoever of just how much you have to up your game to make software accessible to other people when you're creating software. It's something I never would have done if I didn't have the goal of releasing the software to a wider audience. I'd still be sat here thinking, oh, it'd be quicker if I just skip all this and just kind of fiddle about with lines of code and stuff, and I would definitely be worse off for it. So basically, I just use the software now, and one of a couple of quick tips just in case anyone's not using them is one of the most powerful features in the horse racing software is being able to change the results grouping. So, in the betting rules and also in the results table at the bottom, you can sort of kind of chop the data up by different factors, if you like, from a big list of about 30 odd things, because that's where you get your ideas for which rules and filters to add into your strategy. Because let's say you've got a strategy that looks pretty good, and then you chop it up by course and you discover that 3 of the courses are where you make all your losses. You can obviously filter those out then, and you don't need to have put any sort of course filter in your strategy to begin with to be able to see that. So that's why it's really cool. You obviously need to be careful of kind of artificially backfitting your data. So if you've got a strategy that seems to work on 8 to 12 runners, then no dives at 13 runners, but it works again for 14 to 20 runners. There's probably no genuine reason why, unlucky number 13 runners causes you to make a loss. There's probably something else going on there. So you do have to use common sense. And some of the stats like expected value and a couple of the others give you an idea of the sort of stability of each of these stats. So you can see whether it's genuine or just variance. And then the other thing which I look at, which I don't think hardly anyone is using in the software, is the MAE and MFE figures. So if you're doing back to lay or lay to back, then you should be using these because they help you plan your exits and stop losses. MAE stands for maximum adverse excursion, which is a fancy way of saying that it basically takes all your winning trades from the back testing, and for each winning trade, it looks at how far against you. So if you're trying to do back to lay and the price goes against you initially and then goes in your favor and hits your exit, it's looking at all those trades and telling you on average how far against you they went before turning around and going in your favor. So obviously then if you're trying to plan your stop losses, you can put it just past that point. So you're not cutting trades off too early and you're not letting losses run too far. So they can be really useful on back to lay and lay to back. So in terms of researching that data, I just kind of run strategies again and again with different, combinations and find the right set of variables that work.
Wow, that everybody should go and do those tips in the horse racing software that you've just mentioned, because that how many times does something, especially in horse racing, really quickly it goes boom, and you're like, oh, my stop loss has been hit. But if actually over the last few years, you could that's genius. That's so good.
It's an iterative thing because obviously making that little change then can change some other stuff and change your results. But if you run it again and again, you and sort of do it as an iterative thing. You can find a sweet spot usually.
That's amazing. Martin, over to you to see us out.
I like that, Adam. I didn't know about that. I'm going to use that on my Irish Dubs strategy, because that's been doing well. Well, for horse racing, I actually think it's, like Adam said, it's very easy now, because we can test everything. Test everything. Here's what I do though. Once you've created your strategy, then copy it and put the dates in to the date you've created it, so from the start to now, and then have a separate strategy that just looks at the forward testing element, so from today's date, and then you can see individual results. Okay, so if this strategy isn't behaving the same way as it was in back testing, what is it that's not working? Is it that suddenly, class 1 races aren't winning anymore? Things like that. There's lots of variables you can do. And I'll be doing that on football as well. So you could do it with football scorelines when we get that in place. But at the moment with football, all I do is very simple, is I look for the odds range, the ideal odds range. And some strategies, it's so clear, like the lady away team, if you've been following that one, which has been just phenomenal this year, everything that we've laid at odds on has basically lost for us, which means that those teams have won. You'd have made a lot of money going against the strategy. So it's almost like I want to find, right, which odds can I actually do the opposite of what I'm doing? Which odds can I do the current strategy on? And kind of find that odds range that works. And that's really important, because I've found in general, every strategy, especially on football, will have a top end odds where it works and a bottom end odds where it works. And if you go against that, and if you remove those, you find that your profitability goes up hugely. Again, you want to make sure it's not backfitting. I'm actually waiting for 2,000 results on my layaway one, which we're not that far off. And then I'm going to really do an amazing deep dive on that. The other thing is I look at leagues on football. So I want to look at which leagues are working, because it does matter. Like Brazil is not going to have the same amount of goals as the Premier League, right? It just isn't. Brazil is just a slow league. Same with like France. France second division can be really low scoring. So there's certain Argentina, there's certain leagues where they behave differently. So I think that stuff does matter. Again, you want to make sure you've got plenty of data before you start chopping leagues out. And here's the other thing. Keep your original data set. Keep testing. So many people, they remove something from their filter and they don't keep the original one. They don't test the original one. And suddenly all they've got is the new one. And the data they're now testing is different to their original one. And they can't compare the two anymore because they scrapped the other one. Don't do that. That is a criminal mistake. When you're testing data against data, you need to have things to compare. The horse racing is phenomenal because you can just copy strategies instantly. You can just tweak one thing in one, and you can have them all lined up next to each other and run the back testing. It's just gold. And like Adam says, I think the big problem a lot of people have is that they're not really utilizing it enough, and they're not really using this stuff enough. And I almost get the impression that some people just want something dead simple. Oh, show me something that where the dog percentage is 60%. And it's like, that's nice, but that's not going to make you money over time. But when you start to learn it properly, when you start to go into depth, when you start to think about the things me and Adam and Ryan have talked about, that's what really makes the difference when you're analyzing your data. So yeah, that's me on that one.
And just picking up on that as well, I think that's why these sessions are going forward going to be really, really important, because you guys watching this have been around for a while. You've put time into the community, you put time into the software. So by us sharing some of those little sort of snippets and little tidbits here and there, you're then going to go off and test them, and we already know what you're going to do. You're then going to explain that to the community, and it's like top-down approach, really. So Adam was talking about, do you know how many levels you have to go up to actually share this information and talk about this? It makes you so much better. It makes you, there's the whole cone of learning where if you read something, you bring in like 5-10%, but if you actually teach it, you retain so much more of it. It's like 60-70% of it.
Yeah.
And it's the exact same at every level with the community. So we're teaching it, we're becoming better traders, you're becoming better traders, and then you're becoming better by sharing those experiences with the other members who aren't at your level yet. So it's only going to make it better. And if we're all pulling in that direction and we're all throwing things into the software and sharing, oh, have you tried doing this? Have you tried doing that? That's going to make everyone's strategies better. And I think what I've really enjoyed with this session is you've got 3 people here with so much experience. One of the key threads throughout this that I've picked up on is we all do things differently, yet we're all still profitable. So it doesn't matter having a ironclad, this is the way I've got to do it to profit. You can do it the way that you want to. You can build the strategies the way you trade the way you want to and still be profitable. Just learn from the mistakes that we're making and the things that we're doing right and other traders around you. And I think I'll hit stop record right there. Does anyone have any parting comments that they want to add into this?
No, not really. Just thanks for watching.
Yeah.
You've got here, if you've watched this long, you've done well. You're already doing the right things.
You're already doing the right things. We'll see you next month.